So, I love reading. My name's Will, and fire is hot, but enough with the obvious. Today, I'm going to be talking about kind of a mid-year check-in about my reads, some of my favourite reads, things that have caught me by surprise, how it's been going, and also some other media as well. So some films and programmes I've really enjoyed as well. And so, yeah, I won't be giving like a top 10 list. I'm doing that over on the Brothers Gwyn with my brother Ed. But I'll be talking about some books from specific genres that I've absolutely adored. So I was at uni for, well, most of the year so far. So that really impacted a lot of my reading. I've read a lot less by this point than I had in 2023. I think 2023 I'd read 60 books by the end of June, whereas now I'm at 36 in 2024, which I'm still very happy with. And of course, it's more about the quality than the quantity. And there has been a lot of quality, as I'll be talking about as I get later into this video. But first up, I'm going to talk about what is my favourite historical fiction read of the year been so far. I'm picking historical fiction first because that's the genre I've read the most of in 2024. And so my favourite historical fiction read is The House with the Golden Door by Elodie Harper. This is the second book of the Wolf Den trilogy, and it is exceptional in every single way. Some people over in the Brothers Gwyn, they kind of complain that me and my brother, we only read kind of warlike historical fiction. Well, to those, I present this. There is conflict, there is tension, but it's not war. It is historical fiction set in Pompeii in the 1st century AD. And so we're thrust into kind of the heart of the Roman Empire. And The Wolf Den is the namesake of the series, but also the name of book 1. That is the first review I actually did on this channel. And so, yeah, a bit of sentimental value there. But this is book 2. Our main character, Amara, she's in a very different situation in book 2. I don't want to say any more because of spoilers. And so you realise that book 2 is going to be quite different to book 1 when you finish book 1, obviously. And so I wasn't sure how this was going to pan out. I really trusted Elodie Harper's writing style and kind of her progression of plot. And so I thought it'd be enjoyable, but maybe not as high as book 1. How wrong I was. This hit even loftier heights. And I love book 3, The Temple of Fortuna, as well. It is a trilogy that each and every one hold very close to my heart, and they're brilliant for different reasons. But this is just top of the pile, the pinnacle of historical fiction alongside a few others for me. And it has gone down as one of my favourite books of all time. And so, yeah, that is my favourite historical fiction read of 2024 so far. And probably, actually, my favourite read of the year so far. Now on to the genre I probably talk about the most, and over the course of my life, I've read the most of. And that is the fantasy genre. And so my favourite fantasy read of the year so far is Return to Adan by Philip Chase. This is a book that it feels so hard to describe. It is heavily inspired by epic fantasy. It is inspired by classic fantasy, but it is also something completely different and unique. And it almost feels kind of constrictive to label it under those kind of tropes and prototypes because it is so different. The second book of this trilogy, The Prophet of Adan, almost feels like the end of a normal fantasy series. You have a huge climactic ending, and a lot of what we expect to happen in book 3 happens in book 2. And so I was very intrigued and curious what was going to happen in book 3. It starts a little bit slower, but the tension right from the get-go is just insane. Philip Chase, Dr. Fantasy himself, hits home, and he can truly say that he has created a unique fantasy series. I see a lot of people say that they love the fantasy genre, but they need a break every now and then because sometimes it does feel a bit repetitive. There's a lot of the same tropes done again and again, and also the same endings, really. A big epic conclusion with an action sequence, and then the good people either win or lose. And obviously, it's a lot more complex than that. Each book has its own kind of nuances and books that intrigue you, but a lot of it, I do agree, can be a bit of the same. And that's part of the reason I read so many different genres. But this is unique. So if you're one of those readers getting a bit bogged down, thinking you want something fresher, then don't worry about leaving the fantasy genre. This is what you need to pick up. It is emotional, it is moving, it's philosophical, but it's got kind of the action and the tension and the epic world and magic system that you're looking for in a fantasy series. It has everything. And also, I do love these floppy covers. I don't know, just for me, it's very satisfying. And so, yeah, another reason, even if you just want to hold something and kind of do that, it's even satisfying, and a 5 out of 5 stars for that. Return to Adan, up there with the best books I've read as well. And then next up, I'm going to be talking about my favourite book that has been released in 2024. It is historical fiction. It's my second favourite historical fiction, actually, of the year, and it is Arthur by Giles Christian. This is, of course, as it's named, Arthur, inspired by the Arthurian legend, Arthurian myth, but in a historical setting as the Saxons are beginning to take over Britain. And this is the third in the Arthurian Tales series, but they are companion tales. Each book has completely different POVs, and 90% of the cast is completely different and you don't see in the other installments. So if you want, you could just pick this up and dive straight in. I would recommend reading Lancelot first, but you can definitely absolutely love this read without knowing what happened in the previous installments. This is a dual timeline, which for me is hit or miss. Sometimes it can be done brilliantly, but a lot of the time it can be a bit jarring because, of course, it is so hard to balance timelines where you're not giving away spoilers for one or the other, but making it still feel realistic. I think Stephen King's great at this. I can't really think of anyone else off the top of my head. There are others, but there's a lot of authors who I feel it didn't really serve the story very well. But Giles Christian does it brilliantly. One of our POVs is an old warrior who's obviously got a past, and he's sucked into defending this boy, even though it creates him a lot of enemies, and he's instantly on the run trying to keep this boy alive. And we don't know what his motivations are or what his past is initially. That's part of the fun, is finding out. The other POV is back in time as we follow Arthur as a young boy, as we see how his childhood shaped him into the man he would become, with all the myth and legend to follow. Giles Christian is one of the best writers out there, and more people need to discover him. He's got lyrical prose, incredible character development, and a gripping plot. His character interactions are just sensational, and they invest you. They add the heart to the story that just elevates everything else to a whole new level. And so, yeah, Arthur, please read this. I expect that I'll be having a review of this on the channel at some point, and over in the Brothers Gwyn we will be talking about the whole Arthurian Tales trilogy as a whole, and we'll have that over there as well, because my brother Ed, he also read Arthur and adored it, and it's just a book that we all need to talk about. And so, yeah, that is my favourite release of 2024 so far. The fourth and last category I'll be talking about in this video is my biggest surprise of 2024. And the one I've chosen for that is You Like It Darker by Stephen King. I'm not surprised Stephen King has given me another book or work that I've enjoyed, but I am surprised how much I enjoyed this short story collection. Because my main attraction to reading is engaging with the characters, being invested in the characters, and the character growth that you see through a book, which of course you need a longer page count. Usually it's almost impossible to do it in a short story because I like it to feel realistic. And in reality, people don't usually change quickly. And so you need a lot of events, a lot of catalysts for change for your characters. But I think there's 12 short stories in this collection. I read and really enjoyed 10. There's one I couldn't read because it spoils Cujo, and I want to read that at some point. And there's one that I did not enjoy very much. It just didn't click with me. It was very creative, but it just didn't stick the landing, and it wasn't satisfying. But the other 10 I thought were just brilliant in so many different ways. Of course, it's Stephen King, so quite a few have a supernatural element. There's one about how did these two friends who are now very old in their 80s, how did they both become so famous in different spheres of society in their 40s? What happened? And so, was it just a coincidence? Maybe. And there's another one about if you could have answers to anything that's going to happen in the future and know the truth, but you can only ask a few questions in a short time span, and then you have to deal with the kind of the consequences of knowing these answers, but also what is left unknown as well, and kind of the psychological impact of that. I love these simple premises that are just explored brilliantly with a fantastic array of characters by Stephen King. And the title is You Like It Darker. And we are given some very dark stories. We've got some very dark characters, dark premises, and dark events throughout. But yeah, Stephen King, he is just quickly becoming one of my favourite authors. I've read, I think this is the 9th work I've read by him, and it's another one that's a tick for me. And so, yeah, this was my biggest surprise of 2024. I thought I'd enjoy it. I thought I was going to read 2 or 3, read a book, return to another 2 or 3, read something else. But I was just hooked, and every single one was just hitting. So I carried on and just, really blitzed through this, and it was fantastic. And I'm so happy I picked up Stephen King's latest release. And so they're the 4 books that I'm talking about in this video. I'm going to quickly talk about some films, programs that I've loved as well. Things that are very different from the books that I'm talking about. Other than, of course, I have to talk about Dune 2. My favourite film of the year so far, and I think that'd be the same for many people. Watched this at the cinema, and it was just exceptional. Timothée Chalamet with such an amazing performance. His charisma is just exceptional. It's mind-blowing, really. And the cast throughout just showed their quality in this film, and everything was just brilliant. The build-up, the tension, the why can't I speak? The finale, how it led from the first one, because I may be told off for this in the comments, but I was not a fan of the first film. I thought it was all right. I much preferred the first half of the book, whereas I loved this second one, and I thought it did a better job than even the book, which I know I might be making some enemies there as well to those who hold the book so close. But yes, so it really was a film of kind of 2 halves for me. I enjoyed the first one, but I wasn't really excited for Dune 2. And then I went to the cinema and I was proved wrong. It was exceptional. Something very different, another film I loved, was The Fall Guy with Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling. This was just so much fun. It didn't take itself too seriously. I've watched it twice. It's great. Please go and watch it. It's a shame that a lot of these films this year, it's been a big topic of debate, hasn't it? Why are so many films flopping at the cinema? And it really baffled me that The Fall Guy did, because it is so much fun, open to so many different demographics. It does have some cheesy bits, but in a way where I said it's unserious. It's kind of mocking itself. And Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling were just fantastic in it. So please go and watch that if you can. It's very light-hearted, a lot of fun, and a lot of laughter as well. And then my favourite programme so far is Kin Season 2. Charlie Cox is one of the main actors in this, and he's one of my favourite actors, and he delivers again in this. This series was fantastic. The antagonist, oh my gosh. It was almost like I've been watching The Boys lately, and there's this fear you have whenever Homelander is on screen. If you've watched it, you know. And I felt the same with the antagonist in Kin Season 2. But it's kind of a mafia-type story, but disillusioning all kind of the glorification set in modern-day Ireland. And I absolutely loved it. If you're interested in that sort of premise, go and watch it. It's absolutely brilliant. But that is kind of a mid-year check-in. 36 reads, a lot of great ones mixed in there. It's been quite limited in some ways because a lot of the books I've read have been chosen for me to read for uni. So there's been ones that I nearly chose as my biggest surprise was Watchmen, the graphic novel, which I absolutely adored, and In Cold Blood, the non-fiction true crime by Truman Capote, which are 2 that I would never have picked up if it wasn't on my reading list for uni. But I did, and I thought they were both fantastic in different ways. And so, uni is brilliant for that. Obviously, it means I've not been able to pick as many books that are on my TBR, many that are on my shelves behind me that I've not read yet. But it's been great in other ways as well. And I've got summer ahead of me to, before I get dived into my second year at uni, read a lot more of the books that have been looking at me for so long. And then, also some of my favourite films and programmes, because I just love all sorts of kind of the imagination of art in that arena. But that is my mid-year check-in. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your favourite reads of the year so far are. And, of course, stay safe.